here we are on the day before Valentine's Day. What a wonderful time to start talking about romance. Let me introduce Annie R. McEwen. She is a career historian and has lived in 6 countries under every roof, from a canvas tent to a Georgian, Georgian, do you pronounce that Georgian or Georgian? I don't know, era manor house. Anyway, she writes historical romantic suspense, paranormal romance, and historical fiction. Annie is published by Harbor Lane Books in the United States, Bloodhound Books in the United Kingdom, the Wild Rose Press, and Rowan Prose Publishing. When she's not in her 1920s bungalow in Florida, Annie lives, writes, and explores castles in Wales. Ooh, how exciting! She is the winner of the 2022 Page Turner Writing Award in the romance category, and Annie has garnered both a first and second place in the 2022 RTTA, which is the Romance Through the Ages Award, in 2023 the Maggie Award, and in 2023 the Daphne du Maurier Award. And I meant to look up the pronunciation. I know who she is. I just don't speak French. Anyway, she's a finalist, she being Annie, is a finalist for the 2024 Page Turner Writing Award and shortlisted for the Writers Mentorship Award. Annie's short fiction appears in numerous anthologies. Today, we're going to talk about querying agents and publishers. So Annie's tutorial on the subject is based on personal experience, along with the advice, some taken and some discarded, from industry experts. So let's join her and learn what she has learned in the trench of warfare querying. I am so excited to have you here.
Happy to be here. So I'll let you get the PowerPoint going.
Okay, let me see. Let me get that going first.
If
Okay.
you get a chance, everybody, put in the chat where you're tuning in from. I enjoy seeing where everybody is. I'm in Florida at the moment. Oh, hi, Virginia, Pittsburgh. All right.
I have to get all my screen share stuff out of the way so I can actually start the slideshow.
Okay.
Okay, here we are. Let's see if I can start it from the beginning. You tell me when to change the slides and I will do that.
Well, I will. Okay, so the title of this workshop, you gotta ask first. I'm indebted to my dad for that, because when I was a kid, I remember this moment very well. When I was a kid, I was whining to him one day about something my sister got that I didn't get. And he said, well, did you ask for it? And when he saw the blank look on my face, he said, well, you gotta ask first. And so that, of course, is not only true in life and with kids, but it's definitely true in publishing. You know, querying is that important threshold that you just got to get across to get your work out there. Because no matter how brilliant it is, or no matter what state it's in, most of us, when we start querying our work, really is probably not quite ready to be published, or it may be, I don't know, but querying is a whole separate endeavor. So mostly I'm going to deal with query letters and online forms for making approaches to agents and publishers, but the information is the same. So let's see the next slide, Ms. Paula. Now, querying agents versus querying publishers. Is there any difference? Yeah and no. The difference really is, I think, irrelevant. I mean, obviously you're going to address your query letter differently, and you're going to be querying a publishing firm that may or may not have someone individual that you can query. as opposed to an agent that you may actually know quite a bit about if you've done due diligence and looked up that agent online. So, but in terms of the material that you're going to hand them, no, there is no difference. Why? Because when you are querying an agent, you need to think the way the agent will be thinking when they read your query. And they are thinking, what is a publisher going to think about this book? And so either way, you keep the publisher in mind and you keep the publishing industry in mind when you're querying. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Yeah. This is do's and don'ts. Do take the time to look at every single short bio on the agency's Our Team page. Because you know, every publisher's website will have a page that says Our Team or Our Talent or Here's Who We Are or something like that. And take the list that each agent includes in their bio of what they are looking for or what they represent very seriously. Don't try to fudge that. Don't try to sell a 4-book historical romance series to an agent who does not have that genre listed. And don't try to persuade an agent or a publisher to take a work that isn't represented on their website, because you're probably just wasting your time in that. They know what they need. They know, or at least they believe they know what will sell. They're not infallible. They make mistakes. Agents sometimes have very narrow things that they're looking for. And, you know, it is, yes, I will warn you if you haven't done this, it is demoralizing to read bio after bio after bio. And then you say to yourself, golly, you know, none of these people wants what I write. That's a separate issue. And I would love to see, Ms. Paula, I would love to see a tutorial on genre, because genres are shifting all the time. And those of us that write on the edges of a genre or that sort of snooze, you know, categories, it's challenging at every step of the way, starting with finding an agent who says that they can take something, you know, that we're like what we're writing. So next slide, please.
Hold on a second. It's not advancing.
The PowerPoint moment, yeah. Sometimes they stick.
There we go.
Oh, look at him. Don't waste a lot of space or time trying to establish a personal connection with the agent. Now, this is bad advice that I tried to follow. And there is bad advice. I know this will shock you. There is bad advice on the internet. There is bogus information and sometimes very well-intentioned information that just reflects one person's personal experience, but is not necessarily good advice. And one of the things that I still see out there is people who say, try to establish a personal relationship with the agent that you're querying. You know, and agents leave themselves open to this in part because their agencies, I think, tell them, personalize your bio, tell them something personal, tell people what pets you have or what your favorite hobby is or how many kids you have. And so the poor agents, I mean, they include that information, and then query letters often include extraneous information that they're not going to have the time or the interest to pay attention to. And if it makes you feel any better, I absolutely die of embarrassment when I think of an agent that I queried who had said that she directed an Irish dance company. Well, I used to be an Irish dancer and directed an Irish dance company. And so I wasted 3 sentences in my query letter trying to sort of bond with her on a river dance basis. And that was so a waste of time. All right, so don't do that. Just don't do it. They don't have the time for that and it won't work. Next slide. Yeah, now manuscriptwishlist.com. If you're taking notes, and this is a URL you don't have, you need to write it down. Manuscriptwishlist.com. Hard to say, which is why it goes by its acronym, MSWL. This is a kind of Bible for you. MSWL has, this is the more informal platform that agents and publishers, but primarily agents, use to give writers inside information about what they're looking for right now. Okay, the problem with that is that it's only effective if the agents keep it updated. And in a perfect world, they would do that. But you may have noticed we do not live in a perfect world. And so what you need to do before you get too excited about seeing something on MSWL, it's impossible to say no matter how you say. Don't get too excited until you cross-check whatever they've written on that platform with their agency website bio, and also just do a yeah, Lena, I'm actually going to respond to the question you're asking in a little bit, so hang on to that because I'm coming around to it. Just do an internet search on the age. I'm surprised I didn't do this in the beginning because normally it's the kind of thing I would do in other fields of endeavor, not just to rely on the bio that somebody has posted, but do an internet search, see where they pop up. You may even find that they've done an interview somewhere and that the interview is online, recorded, and you actually see them and listen to their voice and hear them talk about what they do. You may decide you just don't like the way their sales are done, and they decide, well, I don't care if they are looking for my genre. I don't think I can work with this person, because that's something you should ask yourself. And amazingly, because we are also eager to get published or to get an agent, we don't ask ourselves a very simple question that we would ask if we were going to get a job somewhere. I mean, you would do an internet search on your prospective employer, wouldn't you? And you would ask yourself, is this somebody I can work for? Because sometimes you will say no, or you may get excited and say, oh boy, I really want to query this person. You may not find a lot of information, but you should at least try. Okay, yeah, and that's, by the way, the example I'm giving down here is a real thing that happened. I got all ready to query somebody, and at the last minute, I did an internet search, and I found out that they'd left the agency, which still had their bio up and had their query apparatus in place. But I totally would have been wasting my time querying them through that publisher, through that agency, because I guarantee you the agency would not have passed on that lead. So that I got saved a lot of time and energy. Next slide, please.
Oh, there it goes again. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Lena, don't drop names unless you know the name personally and have their permission to drop it. So saying I've read all of Deb Harkness's books will get you nowhere except on her fan page where she will love you. Saying I was on a teaching panel with Deborah Harkness last month and she suggested I query you is a whole different thing. Now, if you met someone at an RWA convention and you were one of 500 people who met that person, that's you cannot really rely on that as a reference. I mean, I would not. I don't know that it would reflect badly on you, but I don't know that it would reflect well on you either. To me, if I were an agent reading that, I would think you were trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. If you had more of a close encounter with a name, that's different. The example I use is that I was on a teaching panel with Deborah Hartnett. I wasn't, but I mean, it's the kind of thing that I would say was close. I have carte blanche to use the name of a former professor of mine who is a very published author, but I've known her for years. So you see, there's just you have to use your discretion there. I just conventions are what in theater we call cattle calls. You know, there's just so many people at them, and that kind of dilutes any sort of reference that would normally depend on a one-to-one relationship. Now, if you say I was at the RWA convention in wherever I forgot where it was in 2024. And I had a very pleasant conversation with Deborah Kirkman, somebody. And the subject of querying came up and she recommended. There you go. Okay, next slide.
Oh, I'm sorry. You cut out a little bit. She recommended what?
That, and she recommended you, meaning recommended your agent.
Okay.
Or recommended you as a potential agent.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you mention awards, pardon me, only if they are widely known and respected?
And how might a person know if an award they have won is widely known and respected?
It should be global. It should be global. If not global, it needs to be an award from a global, or it needs to be an award from an organization with global reach. That would include RWA. That is a global organization. Mystery Writers of America, that's another one. Yes, this is an award that I won, but you know that's so these when you win these awards, they give you these wonderful little logos that you can put on your website and so on. Do not attach them to your letter. Don't attach any kind of graphics to your letter. No artwork, no photos, no fancy schmancy calligraphy or any of that. Don't do any of that. But if you want to mention a couple of awards or even just one, if it's a good one and it's global, yes, that's okay. Next slide. Yeah, this is one of the best things you can do, but it requires a little advanced sifting because, as we all know, the internet is just, 90% junk and 10% gold. There's a lot of bad writing advice, a lot of bad publishing advice, but there is some brilliant publishing and writing advice. Two sources that I can recommend without reservation are Alyssa Matasic and Mary Adkins, especially Alyssa Matasic. I subscribe to both Alyssa and Mary's YouTube channel. Alyssa produces full-length programs, which are not, overly long. I think they're 30 minutes. But she also produces shorts, which are incredible. They're just like little nuggets of extremely useful information. Both Alyssa and Mary, especially Alyssa, are seasoned industry professionals. They know the industry. They know what writers need to do to get published. If they tell you you can or can't do something, you can take it to the bank. Their advice is reliable. Jane Friedman is one of my favorite people in the whole world. Again, a very respected and seasoned professional. Her webpage and blog are first rate. Jane is another one who can tell you, yes, do this, no, don't do that. And yeah, subscribe to her newsletter, get with her on LinkedIn or whatever you need to do. But what she tells you is excellent. Next slide. Don't reinvent the wheel. Take online tutorials and workshops in query writing as you can afford them. You don't have to spend $1 million. Save your pennies, because once you get into publishing, surprise, surprise, for the longest time, you will spend more than you will make. Sorry. Don't mean to take the bloom off the rose. But promotion can be expensive. And as we know, publishers do less and less and marketing authors. And that means you have to take up the slack and it can be expensive. So save your money. There are plenty of free workshops and low-cost workshops. For the longest time, I set a limit for myself and said I would not spend more than $35 to take an online tutorial or workshop. And I was taking so many that I would say I was taking 4 a week. And that's not excessive. You just sort of work your life around it. It's not going to last forever. You're not going to do that forever, but it's going to take your skills and just jump them way up in a short period of time. You can't take one tutorial and then say, oh, that's okay. Now I know everything there is to know about writing a query letter. No, you need to get different people's angles on it, and then from that, you're going to say, okay, I can do this, but I don't want to do that. And you'll come up with your own way of managing that task. It's just like those great YouTube videos that are out there on how to do stuff in Canva. Because I would never be able to do anything on Canva if it weren't for those YouTube videos. Well, the same thing is true of queries. It's absolutely the same. Fictionary. Now, Fictionary, of course, is a software writing system, and they will try to sell you their services, but they do not bar you from their Fictionary community if you're not enrolled and you're not a subscriber to their rather costly but excellent software system. You can still sign up for their workshop. Savvy Writers. Oh yeah, Savvy Writers is fantastic. They offer great workshops, and they also do seasonal pitch fest where you get a chance to pitch your work. Pitches, that's another one Paula will probably want to do a romance Dreamweavers thing on, which is how to pitch. That's a little different from querying, but everything you learn and put into effect in querying can be used for every other form of pitch, whether it's a one-line pitch or a 50-word pitch or whatever. You already are going to have that material because you created it for a query letter. And so you're going to get a lot of mileage from it. Okay, and in addition to savvy writers, romance dreamweavers. I mean, honestly, the offerings from romance dreamweavers are just, they're right up there with any other platform I've ever seen. You should belong to at least a couple of genre-specific groups. Now, some of these you will have to pay dues for, so, you know, pick and choose. The Daphne du Maurier Award that I received is from KISS, which is the Kiss of Death, Kiss of Death, which, I love that name, which is the mystery, it's the mystery romance chapter, national chapter of Romance Writers of America. It's a great chapter. And so they offer lots of workshops. Individual chapters, I mean, I've taught tutorials for like the Orange County RWA chapter. I mean, you don't have to live in Orange County. You can be anywhere on the planet and take one of their tutorials. You know, they'll advertise it and we all get on the internet and enjoy it. And so by belonging to these special interest groups, you will find out about all the things that apply to your genre. And most of them at some point during the year will offer a workshop in querying. So, okay, next slide. Yeah, you're going to write your query letter like any other business letter. Just think of it as a business letter. And even if you are querying on a form, because a lot of publishers now want you to use Query Tracker, which we'll get to in a minute, but many of them have their own form. So you don't get to actually type them a letter. You have to use their form. It makes it easier for them to process submissions or queries, of which they get a million. So even so, you should still, many of them don't give you a chance to actually cut and paste an entire business letter, but you do get to put the same content maybe in more than one space. So you're going to start, you know how to write a business letter, and if you don't, find that out online, but you're going to use the standard heading with the date, the address of the agency. Used to be we had to actually do the whole street address and zip code, but nobody does that anymore. It's okay now just to put the name of the agency, all right? This is important though. Always use a formal salutation for the agent. Even if you don't know who the agent is and you are addressing just the agent. Dear William Morris, agent. You know, but if you are if you're pitching to an individual, an agent, pay attention to their gender preferences. It'll be in their agent bio or in their MSWL listing. She, her, they, them, he, him. So when you start with dear, which you will do, use that form with either Ms. or Mr. If they haven't listed a preference, or if you're not sure, use the agent's full name. It is always correct to use the agent's full name, Dear Angelica Smith, and go from there. Yes, the use of first names is very common these days. I don't recommend it. I think it comes across like you're trying to be chummy, and I would recommend trying to be chummy in a query. Maybe later, you've been asked for a short excerpt, and then they say, well, I want the full, I want to do a full read, send me the whole manuscript. Then you can address each other by first name. Or if they address you by your first name, you can reply using their first name. Well, Angela, I was so happy to get your response. Your closing is best regards. Don't try to do anything tricky or funny. Just best regards is fun. Next. So your query letter is going to have the address, the greeting, dear so-and-so, the body, that's the business end of it, and your closing. The body contains 3 parts. That's what I mean by a 3-part format. And you need to keep it to 250 words. I'm serious. If you can even get it just a hair lower than that, that's fine. But if you go to 250 words, that's fine. Don't go over. Edit, 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 and edit. You only have to do that severe repetitive editing one time. Once you get it down to a good 250 words, you'll be able to use that. Just plug that into query after query after query. So unless you really want to, you won't have to keep going back and editing it again. The 3 parts of the body are the hook, the blurb, and the thanks. And again, if you're taking notes, write that down. The hook, the blurb, and the thanks. 250 words for that part. You don't need to include the address, the greeting, and the closing in your 250 words, but you do need to have no more than 250 in the body. Next slide. Okay. I actually, my former agency, I have a sad story connected to my former agency. I'm presently unagented, but I'm still very good friends with my former agent and with everybody in the agency. We lost our representation through nobody's fault. Just a tragic situation. But I actually posted this fake query letter the other day on that agency website that we keep going so we can all, communicate with each other and be a support group for each other. And they all thought it was a real book. And a lot of them write cozy mysteries. So they were like, oh my God, that's really, they were having sort of query envy, and I kept saying, it's not real, it's not real. I don't write cozy mystery anyway. But just take a look at this. Your first sentence that's the single most important sentence in the whole query. A lot of times an agent will read this and that's it. They won't read the rest of your letter. They'll just say, sorry, put it to one side and you're not in. Because not because you're a bad person, but because they've seen something in that first sentence that they know they can't use. They may be overloaded with cozy mysteries. They just got them coming out both ears, and they're not looking for another cozy mystery. And then here you are with your 75,000 word cozy mystery, and they go, I can't use it. Or they only want standalone, and you have said with series potential, and they go, oh, I don't know. How committed is this writer to doing a series? Well, now I think is a fault on their part. You said potential. You didn't say it was the first book of a series. So they may have missed out on something there. You might have been willing to sell it as a standalone, but they didn't give you the chance, whatever. But you start with your title. Just don't do anything fancy. Just start with your title and say the word count right away, because that's important to them. They need to know. Then the genre. And then if you want, and if you think you could write a series, you can say with series potential. if you know there's no way in heck you are going to be able to write a series, don't stay with series potential, because I guarantee you they are going to come back at you and say, can you make this a series so well? And some agencies are really into series. And so don't say unless you mean it. But if you think you can for sure make a series out of it, then say it. Then here you notice I put the award. I didn't save it for last. I never heard of the Best Cozy Excerpt Award, but I'm going to presume it came from a global award, program. And so I mentioned it right away. All right. Then I set it up just like a blurb. It is a blurb. That's what it is. It's a blurb, just like you would write on the back of a book. I don't know how to write a blurb. That's another tutorial for Paula to set up. But you need to know right away. Just look at the back.
You're making a lot of work for me, Annie.
Notes. I hope you're taking notes. I'm not just blowing smoke over here. Yeah, this just the quickest way to learn to write a blurb is to read the backs of a bunch of books. And if the blurb makes you want to read the book, that's a good blurb. So, yeah, several people that read this fake thing said, "Oh my God, I'm going to read that." I am not writing this thing. I have no idea where it came from. It just popped out of my head. But I wrote it just as a blurb. I talk about Kavanaugh Leary and his issue, and then Charlotte meets her problem, and then the two of them together. Kevin can't get 10 words out before he panics and hides in the kitchen. Charlotte's smile can make ice melt, and her brain is steel trapped. Okay, so right away we've got opposites attract, right? And then we get the clincher here at the bottom. The last line, of course, has to define the whole point of the book, what a friend of mine calls the heart of the romance. And when will they realize that the tastiest thing they're cooking is love? I don't know. When? When will they? Okay. Thank you. All right. And then your closing. Thank you for giving attention to my query. No reason to go on and on with it. Just thank them. And best regards, I'm out of here. All right. Next slide is really me saying who I am again. So you can look at it or not. But this is my my latest, not my latest release, but this came out in January, and it's book one of a series. And I think one of the reasons I'm okay showing you with this, and it's not just all shameless self-promotion, that this book is how Paula and I got to know each other, because an excerpt from this book got me the RWA mentorship award 2 years ago, and Paula was my mentor. And so there is a one-to-one connection between Paula sitting up there in her little Zoom square and this book. And but I do have another book that came out, which Paula's reading right now, book 2 in a series. That series, I queried an agent, and it was so long by the time she got back to me that I totally forgot I had queried her. When she contacted me, I went, "Oh, who did I query this woman? Who is she?" Well, she became my agent, and that series sold to my American publisher, and I'm working now on book 3 of that. It's a trilogy. So I'm working on the last book. The other 2 are out already. So, questions Hit me.
Do you want me to end the slideshow? And by the way, I want everyone to know because I was so touched. You know, when we write a book and we um, think about who we want to who we want to dedicate it to, um, you know, you put some thought into that, but you never really, I don't think about how a person thinks about it once um, once it's out there. I mean, I've dedicated my first book to my father who had died before it was out there, and one to my editor, and one to my mother, and one to some women that were very instrumental in helping me do research on my third book. But I will tell you, when you open a book and you see that it's been dedicated to you, your heart stops and the tears flow. So thank you very much, Annie. I do
Well,
appreciate that so much.
thank you. The book was a lot of work, um, but it paid off. And, that series is being published by my UK publisher, and talk about a good fit. That is for me. I love those people. We just sort of instantly bonded and formed a team. I love working. They are thoroughgoing professionals.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so let's see. I will look at the chat. It's pretty extensive. So let's see if I can find questions here. Um, how do you get those specific details regarding the terminology? How do you get the chance, how do you get the change room talk? I'm not sure what that means. The talk on the rink while they are playing. Oh, I see what you mean. You're talking about like the locker room talk. Um, How do you do research? That's a good one for you, Annie.
Okay, well, we're in a different genre then, or a different topic. Um, if you're writing in a genre like a say sports romance, which is a very hot genre, one of the best things you can do is just read other books in that genre, not because you're going to copy it, but because you're just going to, you know, all right, I'll give you an example from me. I write historical romantic suspense. I write several things, but historical romantic suspense is my number one genre. So I think the best writer of that has ever lived to date is Joanna Barnes. I have read, she didn't write very many books. She wrote some and then just decided she didn't want to write anymore. I have read each of her books 4 times, each one 4 times, until I could internalize the feel, not the language. I wasn't taking her language. I have my own language. I don't need hers, but just the feel of it. The feel of it is more important than I think than things like the language. You can sell a sports romance with all the rink talk, okay? I mean, you can make it sound like you're sitting, rink side, right behind the goalie or whatever, and still not have a book worth reading.
Right. And also in answer to that question, if you go on to my YouTube channel, I think it was last month, Catherine Deal talked specifically about hockey romance, and that was one of the things that she addressed was getting the terminology correct. So you might go back on my YouTube channel and look at last month and watch that. You'll get good information there. We have another question. It says, regarding personal connection, is it okay to write, quote, we met at RWA or HWA convention in blank city?
That's Lena. We already dealt with that. And Lena, thank you for saying thank you. Yeah, we already
Okay.
dealt with that. Yeah, only if the connection is significant. To say that you were at a Writer's Digest conference and you attended a class taught by somebody, Sarah Moss, and that's not a close personal connection. Even if you have spoke with her and went up to her afterwards and said, I love your work. And she said, well, thank you. Pleased to know that. It's not a personal connection.
Okay.
If you had lunch with her, and you can always offer to buy somebody lunch. They might take you up on it. And then during lunch, you got into a conversation, and Sarah Moss said, listen, why do you query so-and-so? That's a personal connection.
Okay. So Joan Ramirez came in a little bit late. She wants to know if she can email you. And I'm quite sure that that is between you two. You can add that or not. But Joan, just for your information, by this weekend, I will get this up on my YouTube channel and on my website. So you can always email me and I can give you those links. Okay, I guess anybody else have any questions? Did I get it right from the
Let
top?
me let me just respond to Joan real quickly. Joan,
Uh-huh.
are you there? Yeah. Okay. If you can contact me through my website, which is AnnieRMcEwen.com. And there's contact form there. And just contact me through my website and I'll get back.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have a few more minutes if anybody else has any questions. Um, and I am so glad that you came here and talked about this. When we were working with the mentorship, because I have never queried. From the very beginning, I knew I was going to be an indie author. And one of my one of my things that I looked for were people who wanted to be self-published. I, to this day, don't know how you slip through the cracks, Annie. When I realized that you wanted to be traditionally published, I was like terrified. I was like, oh no, I don't know how I'm going to help you get through that, because that was supposed to include either work on a query letter or on a blurb. So I am so thrilled, though, that we got together, because I absolutely love your writing. And so I'm looking forward to a lot of it. So keep at it.
And thank you. That's kind of you. Two things I will mention. One is you heard me mention Query Tracker. Query Tracker, you can just Google it. QueryTracker.com is a platform, international platform for querying and for tracking your query. I'm conflicted about Query Tracker. I think I haven't used it in 3 years maybe. Maybe they've improved it. I found it not very user friendly. I found it sort of cumbersome and dorky in its setup. But on the other hand, I sent out. I am going to guess, and again, this is advice that maybe you should hear. I sent out at least 75 queries before I got my agent. And I had actually gotten so exhausted that I quit querying. And then a couple of months later, she contacted me. And she was in one of the waves of queries that I sent out. From that group of around 75, I also got requests for 3 full reads and about 4 requests for excerpts. And most of them were encouraging. They saw something in my work, which I really needed to hear. I told a friend of mine then that it was almost as good as getting is getting taken on by them as a client, for them to just say, yeah, one of them said one of the funniest things I've ever heard, and I quote it all the time. Lovely agent in New York. She asked for a full read, and she got back with me very quickly, and she said, you know, I don't know why I like this book, but I do. And that book is the one that was the first book of the three volume paranormal romance trilogy. So, but I needed to hear that. I thought, okay, so I just need to sort out why she doesn't, you know, don't come back at somebody if they, unless they invite you to ask for advice, don't come back at them and say, well, what's wrong with this? How can I fix it? That's your job. That's not their job.
Okay,
So,
I'm glad that you brought that up because there's two things I think and there is another question which we will get to in a moment about querying, about not don't take your A people that you want to query that you really, really want. Don't make those your first queries. Do your C's and D's first because it hones your skill at querying. And don't and I'm getting this from some people I have interviewed, agents that I have interviewed in my summits. Don't just blast everybody all at once, because if you let's say that you're just starting out and you're querying your very best people, you send out 75 queries at once, you only get one shot at these people. If you get rejected, a rejection letter, you can't go back and fix things up and requery them.
no,
So start with your C's and D choices first to kind of hone your skills, and then go to your B's and then your A's. And then the other thing you had mentioned was, you were very fortunate, Annie, to get some feedback. I have talked to so many people who say, oh, I got a rejection letter and I have no idea why. And another person, I'm glad that you really made it very specific in your presentation to follow the requests and the rules when you submit. Because one agent I talked to in one of my summits, she said, we get so many, if you don't follow all of the instructions for querying that we ask for, you're going to get a rejection letter, and it's going to be a form letter. And the first thing that goes through my head is that, number one, you can't follow instructions. Number two, you're going to be difficult to work with. So,
yeah.
you know, very definitely do that. So Christy asks, how do you keep the balance of the romance and the mystery in your books? Do you find it hard to weave both of these threads throughout without letting a thread drop?
Um, it's hard work. There's just no way to make it easy work. How do you do anything that's hard? I mean, I when I was young, I was avid horseback rider. It's like, how do you get good at that? How do you put a horse through the gates and do it right in a way that doesn't embarrass you or the horse? It's hard. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. I revise a lot. I'm an outliner. I'm not a pantser. I was an academic for many, many years before I was able to finally retire from that and write full time. And so I'm used to outlining. There's no pantsering in college teaching or museum work. Everything has to be planned. And so I'm making it sound probably more formal than it is, but I just carry around a notebook with me, and I sit in a coffee shop and And I just outline the whole book and I say, and then this happens, and then this will happen, and then that will happen. And as I'm doing that, I can see the thread, um, almost like if you've seen Discovery of Witches, you know, where Diana Bishop visualizes the threads of her magic, and each one has a different color. And so I see the romance as having one color thread, and the mystery is another color thread. And so I visualize them coming together. And that visualization takes me from the two-dimensional outline to the three-dimensional book in my head. And the better I can keep that three-dimensional book in my head, the better the book will be. And it will take the rest of my life to continue working on that. You never get perfect at it, Christy. You just get better.
Yeah. And that's where beta readers come in.
It's all right. It doesn't matter. Query, one other thing, two other things. When you're doing your queries, keep track of them. Now, if you use Query Tracker, it has a function for that, so that you never lose track of, oh God, did I query these people or not? You know, I did it old school because I had trouble with their system, and I just kept little folders, you know, just little manila folders. And whatever query letter I sent out, I just printed it out. And if I did it on Query Tracker, I printed out that page, because you can do that once you fill out the form that a particular agent has posted for you to fill out. You can print it out. And then I just slipped it in the folder so that any given moment I could look in that folder and see, oh, I already queried them. The other question, how long will it take? A long time. Once in a great while, an agent or a publisher will get right back with you. I lucked out in that the books I have published, they got right back with me, like in one case, overnight. That was our book, Paula.
Oh.
They literally got back with me overnight. I was still agented then, and my agent said, that is the fastest turnaround I've ever seen. They just wanted that book. But that is a fluke. You can wait months. And I told you about waiting months to get my agent. That was from a query. And it just was, I don't know, it was 6 months, I think. Some of them you will never hear from again. You don't take it personally. I know it's hard not to, but they're busy, and they should, yes, they should send a letter, even if it's a form letter. They should send a letter. I'm sorry, thank you for submitting your book, but it doesn't meet our needs at the present time. You know, so you get some closure, but they will not all do that. Don't take it to heart, but it can take a long time. Don't give up hope.
Okay. All right. Well, we're just about out of time. We have 2 minutes left. Any last questions real quick? Otherwise, we are going to thank you very much, Annie. I appreciate your time so much. And I look forward to meeting you. My brother is already thinking about buying a house down in Florida for the winters. I might just go down and stay with him.
Values are turning down a little bit, so it might be a good time to start looking.
Yeah.
They've been crazy high for the last couple of years, but they're starting to drop a bit.
Okay. Okay, well, we're going to end it here. Thank you, Annie. And I will get this posted by the weekend, and I will send out an email to everyone saying, you know, here are the links to review it. And I will also put the link in Facebook. Okay, thank you. All right, bye-bye.